Hi, my name is Joseph, and currently I am studying to take the CSET exam in multiple subjects. This is my office here where I study in Orange County, California, and there you go. So basically I'm doing the social studies portion of it right now, and this is Domain 1, World History. We have 3 domains: World History, then it's US history, and then California history. So I'm doing Domain 1 World History, and I'm going to go over a few civilizations from ancient civilizations, which is the first part. And mostly what I'm going to be doing is going over medieval and early modern times, because these groups like Japanese, Chinese, African, Arabian, Andean Highland, etc., they're less well known. The first ones of ancient Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Greek, Hebrew, these ones are much more common that you'll know about. So the first one I'm going to go over is India. Oh, and by the way, let me say, I adapted this list here, this outline, from the content frameworks from the state of California. I just made it with these letters to make it easier to put it in outline format. So this is not some study book from the store which tells you this is what you need to know. This is literally what the state of California says will be required on this exam. So personally, I found this to be the best study guide so far, and I have all these kinds of books, and I use these to help me answer these things that they ask me for from the content frameworks. So the first civilization I'm going to look at is India. And one thing I should mention is when you look at what they actually talk about on these exams and on the practice tests, you'll notice, I would say the majority of the questions of social studies at least are based on the geography. Like, how did the geography of so-and-so influence their development? So this is one thing you really need to know how to do on this test, is connect the geography to the history. How did their geography affect their economic, political, social development? That's what I'm going to focus on mostly, also on these. So this is my outline I made from my answering these questions here. So the first one is impact of physical geography on the development of ancient civilizations. So India is the first civilization I'm going to be looking at. So what was their geography? Well, they developed in the Indus River Valley, and this is in modern-day India. And there was a series of floods and foreign invasions which wiped out the original group, who were called the Dravidians. And what were their intellectual contributions? Well, there was a few I thought were important. During the Gupta dynasty, Indian mathematicians used the decimal system, which introduced the concept of zero. So this was a big deal. And under Muslim rule, the Mughal Empire, we had great builders including the Taj Mahal. And the Delhi Sultanate, they developed art and architecture. And then we have religious traditions. The caste system, social structure maintaining the social relations with the priests on top solidified by Hinduism. So how did this come into play? This is actually a question on the CSET practice test from the website, the CSET website. And these are the most reliable questions that you can count on to know what the test will be like. Some of the practice tests from the Cliff's Notes or Barron's or Kaplan's books, they ask crazy questions that are not even close to the material on the test sometimes. So you have to be really careful about that. And one question was about what was the most lasting contribution of Hinduism on the social development of India? And the answer, of course, is the caste system, social relations. That's one thing to remember. And then we look at Buddhism. Actually, I was a little confused about this. I thought Buddhism might be from China or Japan, I didn't know what. But actually, it started in India, and he was a prince who rejected his dynasty. And he developed this religion based on rejection of worldly and material things. And one of the key concepts of Buddhism is karma. This means a fate that is earned. And this is a similar concept to what's in Hinduism. Reincarnation is rebirth after death. And this is also in Hinduism. So both are Indian religions originally. And they spread out of the country after that, particularly Buddhism in Asian countries. Okay, Hinduism, one thing we'll say, karma caused how you were born into your social status, your caste. So this is an interesting concept. In other words, it's basically saying if you were a bad person in a previous life, then you will be born into a low position in your current life. So if you're a poor person in India, in Mumbai or New Delhi or something, what Hinduism says is, well, basically it's your fault. It's your fault, not even in your current life, but it's your fault because in your previous life, you were bad, and this is why you're poor. So this is kind of an ingenious way to keep a social stratification intact. So people cannot question their social status in life because, well, they earned it in their previous life. And so why are those of us who are rich and powerful rich and powerful? Well, that's because we were good people in our previous life. So this reminds me also of some of the ideas of absolutism in Western Europe with monarchies. And they had similar ideas, not of previous lives, but of preordained choice from God that you're going to rule these people. So it's kind of a similar kind of concept. And this is something important to do, is to connect these concepts across groups. The concept of like monarchy, social systems. These are things which might come up on the short answer questions on the exam. And the next one I have is China. And I'm gonna cut the video off after this one and then go to the next video for the next section. So we want to have the same question here. Influence of physical geography on the development of medieval and early modern civilizations. So China, the early civilization developed near the Yellow River in ancient times. Now, if you know a map of China, the Yellow River is on the coast near, I believe, Beijing and Shanghai, somewhere over there. The Tang Dynasty. Chinese influence grew to include Korea and Indochina. And if we look under Mongol rule, it was under Genghis Khan, and he invaded and controlled most of northern China by 1215. And then the Ming Dynasty. So this is another one of those things about both China and Japan, which is very important to know for the exam. There's this running concept of isolation and exposure and engagement to the Western countries. Isolation and versus engagement. So both China and Japan have had cyclical histories where at certain points they were engaged with the Western countries and at other points they were very isolated. So keep that in mind as a concept. This is one of the themes. So during the Ming Dynasty, they forbade sea travel to foreign lands, and this was a period of isolation. So the Manchu Dynasty. This included the Opium War in 1839. And opium was actually one of the few imports at the time. Now, in regards to the Opium War, this was what Great Britain did to try to basically dope up Chinese people and make tons of money off them. That's the truth. I mean, I could put it in a politically correct way or try not to be biased, let's say, because I'm making an educational video, but that's the truth. So they tried to, get the drugs in there to make them easier to conquer and control. And Chinese government was really pissed off about that. They said, you gotta cut this shit out. And then they went to war over it. So let's look at the religion. Confucianism. This has white out, so it's a little hard to read. There you go. So by the way, feel free to just copy these word for word if you feel like it, or summarize them, or write down the parts that you think are most important. It's up to you. But these are my outlines, and I hope they're helpful. So, Confucianism. They believe in sincerity, conformity, respect for elders and ancestors. So the idea behind this one was you have to respect the government and the leaders in authority. And it's almost like conformity-based lifestyle. It's like just follow the rules, do what you're told, and you'll have the harmonious society. And this is also something which is still in China today. This is a very important part of Chinese thought and culture, which is the harmonious society. And actually, as you can see, I wrote revered only after his death. So during the life of Confucius, he was actually not respected, and I think his books were banned or burned or something like that. So it was only after his death that he took the status on which he has today. Buddhism. So this was established in China as a result of Indian influence. So as I mentioned before, India was the first one to start Buddhism. So Buddha was actually Indian, not Chinese or Asian. Well, India's Asian, but let's say East Asian, as some people might think. So this is another important thing. I remember seeing another practice question, a question on the practice test about this also. Something about Buddhism and where it started or something like that. So Taoism, that T is pronounced as a D. And this could be debated if it's even a religion at all. It's not really based on a God idea. It's based on the balance, yin and yang. So this means complementary polarities of all existence and harmony with all existence. So notice this plays into the same stuff as Confucianism, the harmonious society. Here it is again. And it was founded by this guy, Lao Tzu. And this is very important in Chinese political and cultural life also, these ideas of Taoism.